I usually don't talk to people about a movie that I haven't seen.
Yeah.
And I haven't even seen the presentation
Yeah.
that you're going to have this afternoon.
You have no idea.
I have none.
Yeah.
I have no clue. They've sent me literally the synopsis.
Right.
So my readers are very interested in this movie, and they want to know what they're going to look forward to. Can you give me a sense of what you're about to present to us?
Well, what we're about to present is 7 minutes of footage cut together kind of like a trailer.
When did you start filming?
December.
Okay, so you've had a little bit of time to work on this.
Yeah.
You're probably done.
No. We're not done because there's so much post, there's so much visual effects, and there's so much sound design, and there's a lot of editing that I only finish in November. So I'm kind of halfway through post, maybe on the slightly done side, but still about halfway.
But you're past the stage where you're tearing your hair out in despair.
Yeah, I think that's finished. I think that's over. No, I mean I feel pretty good about the film. Like the only thing you have, I guess, as a director is your instincts. There is nothing else really. So if your instinct and your intuition is that you're doing the right thing, that this feels like a film that you want to watch, that it feels rewarding to you, you're in a good place, and that's kind of how I feel, which is a good sign.
So you've created an entirely new world. Can you describe that world for us a little bit?
Yeah, the world creation of the film is pretty rewarding. It's a part of this genre of film that I really like doing. And the film takes place, like 150 years from now, and Earth is diseased and somewhat dilapidated and somewhat third world, the whole planet. And all of the money has gone to this orbital space station that's a lot closer to us than the moon. So the rich basically have left Earth. And that setup and designing what the space station is and the society on it and designing Earth and what Earth would be like is pretty cool. That's the kind of candy that I like in making films in the genre. It's the kind of stuff I want to do. Like without it, I'm not as interested in filmmaking. So I want to work in genres.
What kind of advances did you make in terms of the actual craft and the VFX and the technology, in terms of having a bigger budget and playing around with a tool set?
There's, the bigger budget is just scaled up the same way that we did District 9, really. So it kind of, the visual effects behind how we pull off the space station are different to District 9 in that, like, we were only doing aliens before.
Right.
The complexity to building this Taurus is what's taking this long in post. The robotics and the ships and the shuttles and everything else, like that isn't that overly complex. It's this world. So
you're designing everything.
Yeah, and you're designing it is easy compared to actually creating it. So the creation of it is the part where I think needing more money to pull that off, and using visual effects techniques that I certainly did not use on District 9 are being employed. But that's, other than that, it's the same type of filmmaking approach in that it's biting off more than it can chew. It's
trying to do
ambitious.
it in a live environment.
For the most part. I always try to make it as real as possible and as believable to the audience as possible, and I think this film does a pretty good job of that. But when you're on a space station, you're in a set. Like there's no way to
escape that.
So you do what you can inside that environment to make it as real to the actors as you can, or as I can think of.
Okay, so give us the short story. Yeah, Matt Damon and Jodie Foster. Give us who's doing what.
Well, Matt is the protagonist. It was really cool getting him to play the role, because a lot of him playing the role actually, I spoke about with him how it, to some degree, uses the sort of the currency that he has with an American audience as this kind of, the poster boy American kind of like hero, and twisting it a little bit. Like there's already an embedded understanding of him, and like he has a lot of sort of honesty and integrity and stuff. I think in the way that audiences
a lot of goodwill, a lot of affection.
perceive him, and so this is playing that a little bit. You know, he's pushing that. So getting him was really cool because I felt like the character would be allowed to go to the distance that he goes in the script, and the audience wouldn't turn their back on him. So, you know, and then Jodie was just this amazing win where I wasn't sure she would do it, but something about the source material just resonated with her, and she signed on. You know, it was kind of, I think it was more of a long shot, really, but...
What's her character?
Her character is a government official on the station who... I don't want to give you everything away, but she kind of... she's more traditional than a lot of the other people she works with in philosophy.
Is there a political context to this film?
There is, in the sense that the film is born out of, I guess, an interest in socio-political topics, and you know, I always say like visual imagery is what interests me and begins the process creatively. For me, I just work that way. Like I'm not like a writer that comes up with characters and I'm interested in some, you know, literature-based approach. It's always visuals, and often, for me, I mean, I'm speaking only for me, visuals can explain a lot more in a very simple snapshot than, you know, what happens with reading a lot of the time, right? Like, you need to read an entire book to get sometimes what one image can show you. And so the idea of a space station that houses the rich and an Earth that's dilapidated and used up, being generated first as a visual, when you work that backwards, it inherently has a hell of a lot of socio-political kind of ingredients. So then it just becomes
your story's about the 1%.
It starts becoming that, you know, and so then it's like you have to, or for me, I just go about injecting the parts of that discussion that interest me, because obviously they're floating around in the back of my mind, or I wouldn't have started with that imagery to begin with, like separation and segregation, and but then it becomes about making a film that a film-going, popcorn-eating audience is going to really like, you know.
And Sony.
No, the audience. So, and that's what I think we're making. I think that we're making something that I want to watch as an audience member.
How did you orchestrate the kind of control that you obviously want over your filmmaking with the studio?
Well, it's made in a somewhat unusual way. It's financed by a company called Media Rights Capital that gives filmmakers a really cool way of making things, in that it's a little bit outside of the system. But the films can, I mean, this is still a relatively large film for something that's being made in a somewhat independent sense. So it gives you a lot of autonomy.
So the studio picked this up, as it were.
Yeah, and so with that, I mean, the way I look at it is, they picked it up, but I have an obligation to. You can't have full creative control over something for the sake of creative control and run the film into the ground, because it's like, you know, you want to see something which is completely unappealing to a global audience. There has to be some sort of, if there isn't a sense of responsibility on the director's shoulders that comes from within them, this kind of model, I think, can run into trouble. And, you know, I think that's why it's kind of working right now with Sony, with a film at this budget, where it's...
What is the budget?
It's kind of around 90 million.
It's a big budget.
Yeah, and it's being made the same way as District 9, you know. It's 100 million without rebates and stuff, but... So...
And where did you shoot it?
Vancouver and Mexico. Yeah.
And if you were to say what the percentage of the film that spends time on Earth versus the percentage spent in the space station, what would the balance?
More on Earth.
More Earth?
More on Earth, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, The space station is incredibly interesting, but the visuals of Earth are more interesting to me.
I can't wait. I just came back from China for whatever reason. You're making me. Did you look at China? Did you look at certain big cities that like to go there is to see Blade Runner in truth, you know?
Well, the biggest now functioning megacity is the Yangtze Delta River, which is upwards of 180 people functioning as one entity. So,
180 million people.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean Shanghai. It used to be a bunch of independent cities that are really now are one functioning conurbation, and that number is ridiculously high. I mean that's greater than the population of Mexico, in one city. So China is a good reference. China plays no role in the film at all. It's not a part of the world that we focus on, but the thinking behind the film for sure comes from all of those regions.
And in our last few minutes, any director DNA, I know you're an original filmmaker, that's one of the reasons we're all interested in what you do, but there must be other filmmakers that inspired you a little bit on this. Is there?
I mean, I have filmmakers that inspire me.
In general?
In general, yeah. To do with the films, no, the films, I mean, the closest thing, there's imagery at the beginning that reminds me of Blade Runner. There is some imagery in the beginning where it's like, there's a few shots that remind me of Blade Runner. That's the closest thing. Other than that, I think of it as, it's a hermetically sealed piece of artwork that has taken inspiration through my life of real life and film influence, or visual influence. And in that camp would be all of the staples: James Cameron, Ridley Scott, Kubrick. I mean, they're probably my favorites.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.